Okay, so looking at these different main ideas for literacy, we'll start off with the first one, phonemic awareness, the ability to identify and play with individual sounds in spoken word. That would be group one, I believe. Um, so
You
whoever
didn't give
has,
us, I'm sorry, Ruben, you didn't give us any, like,
I didn't
were
give
we
you a
matched?
group number.
No, you didn't give us a thing to talk about. So we talked about sight words.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought I did that. Completely my mistake. Well, if anybody has anything to say about phonemic awareness, go ahead and share out. If not, then we'll skip to the next one.
We did comprehension at group one.
Okay, well, pick a group. Whoever's group wants to go first, just we'll do it that way.
Yeah, just do it by group. Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys.
It'll be interesting to hear what everyone discussed since there was no guidelines. We'll see.
All right, well,
You
I'll
can go
talk
first,
about
Esta.
one. Yeah. My other three partners in crime were all newbies to the program. So and they all seem to be doing very, very well. Um, a lot of talk about background now, comprehension being the topic that all of us are struggling with. And SIPS does not have very strong comprehension components except those little questions before and after some of the readings. So we talked about the use of worksheets and RAS Kids, which has a lot of comprehension components. And I talked about the teaching of background knowledge um, and focusing on a unit or something to relate to all that information. So if we take a book, um, my comprehension activities focus on that particular book, whether it's sentence construction, noun, verbs. It's all about that one story that we're picking apart and doing. And you can do that for the Ugly Duckling or the Magic Treehouse. And I find that one of my best practices, but the challenges we all face are the behavioral overlays with the children and their differing background knowledge and of course the volunteers and their level of um, ability to translate what we suggest to what they're doing. I think all of us have that kind of issue, those issues. So,
Okay, so looking at those challenges that Esther mentioned, does anybody have any tips or background that they want to add to that?
Well, I can understand the behavioral one. Believe me, sometimes we can or cannot control what these kids are up to. But as far as the volunteer level of like getting the information that we give them, just frequent training.
yeah,
I just recently did what I called a quickie training where I did something with the kids and
right,
I just had the volunteers, I handed them a piece of paper, go, this is what I'm doing.
right.
This is how it's supposed to look. Because sometimes when I train them, it's not the same as when what you want to see with the child. So
Yeah.
once they do it that way, it's a lot easier for them to understand it. And it's just practice. The more we practice these things, the better off it gets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'll tag on to what she said about training the volunteers and stuff like that. Um, I will usually do like a whole group, a couple of them that the mentors, new mentors, or even the new volunteers can sit and watch. So they'll see me do a comprehension lesson. They'll see me do a vocabulary lesson. They'll watch me do a SIPS lesson um, and model it a few times. That way they'll be able to go back and give that information. And then how you put that information onto your lesson plan will be helpful to them too. Because if you script it out like kind of like SIPs, because anybody can pick up SIPs as long as they go through the script, right? If you script your lesson plans like that too, in a way that they can look at it quickly and get it done, then you'll have a better way of having them pick up that information.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to add anything to what Estes said before we go on to group two?
I can add something, Ryan, and I'm sorry for my non screen today. I am under the weather, have a cold, so my face is all puffy and splotchy. But Something that I think is just really funny is what the students associate and how they piece different things together that we would have no idea. Like, where did you get that connection? And a small group that I had working during the day, they were reading really choppy, really. And so I made the word association. We're not in the kitchen chopping vegetables. We want to be smooth like peanut butter on a sandwich. And then one of my students goes, "Oh yeah, smooth like a criminal." And I was like, "I appreciate the Michael Jackson song reference." I said, "But that's not a best practice for life." And so now whenever I say, "Are we chopping or are we smooth?" He's like, "I'm smooth like a criminal." And so it's just kind of funny, like that little inside joke. But to me, it's like there's so many different things in their vocabulary that they're hearing at home that they will piece together with what we say. And sometimes it can sound off the wall that we're like, where did that come from? But again, they're bringing that with their vocabulary that we haven't necessarily had an influence on.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Anybody else from group 2 before we go to 3? Anybody want to chime in or add any ahas for that? All right, great. Group 3. Let's hear it.
Actually, we're group 2, phonics.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that was a tag on to the last group. But yeah, we talked about some of the activities that we do for phonics. Um, ABC bingo was one, and kind of adjusting it to, kind of repeat like the for each letter some animals or items that sound um, associated with that letter. ABC packets, like having the kids have a whole bunch of letters and then having to draw something that corresponds with each letter, just a way to get them engaged creatively as well. Um, Throwing around a stuffed animal fish, and then throw the fish to each kid, tell them the sound to make or a word to say that corresponds with a certain sound, and just kind of moving around the classroom that way, kind of get them active, kind of get them engaged. And then, yeah, Cherry was a kindergarten teacher, and she spoke about how she used to use repetition with phonics. So she would give each kid, a card with a letter, and they would repeat the letter name several times, and then repeat the sound several times all together as a class. And that sounded very Sipsy to me. The repetition and the choral learning. So that sounded really cool. I'll try some of that.
Awesome. Any comments anybody want to add to Michael? Your name always comes up as Grayson Bird. We gotta get that fixed.
Yeah, I gotta figure out how to
This
fix
is
that.
Michael.
Yeah.
Has
Yes.
anybody heard of something called Spalding phonics?
I have heard of it. I've never seen it.
All right, so my son went to kindergarten in the school where I'm teaching at now, and he did something called Spalding phonics, and I watched the teacher do it one day in the classroom. She would just sit there, and in a few minutes she'd go through the whole alphabet, and it's a mnemonic. I think it was A says A, B says but, and everything had a hand gesture. C says K, D says duh, and then it just goes through the whole thing, and they memorize it. I can go to one of the kindergartners at Mayaca and just go like this, and they know that's t. I don't have to say, what letter does T say? I just said, what sound? They go T immediately. So for real small children, that gesture is a big plus, because I think they're still, I mean, I have a granddaughter now. She's 2.5 going on 3. And she knows all the little hand gestures to all the little songs like the wheels on the bus and all that type of stuff. They learn that from a young age. So the hand gesture connection still at that young age is really, really important.
Yeah, at that age, they're matching sounds with symbols and actions versus necessarily what the letter is or the name is itself early on. So yeah, awesome. The next group. Which is either 3 or 4, I'm not sure.
3 or 4, you want us?
Sure, yeah.
All right, I think I had Tosin, Paige, and Rebecca with me. Some of them were Pensacola. I forgot what the other one was at. And we talked about I guess the five components of SIPs and stuff like that. So sight words came up and the memorization of sight words and stuff and how to, I mean, doing it in the lesson is one thing, but these kids don't get it in the lesson. You go over maybe 5 or 10 words. Sometimes the lists get really long and it's just too much for them. So I told them what I do is I make a chart of those sight words in the lessons. If I've got a review group, they've got every sight word that they have from review 1 to review 15. If I've got a beginner group, they've got every sight word from maybe beginner 1 all the way to beginner 55. And I send them home the sight words and I keep one inside their binders. And they'll go through and once they master it, if they can read it 3 times without making a mistake, they've mastered it, we cross it off on the list. And when those kids see stuff getting crossed off that they're already learning, then they become really encouraged in doing that. Also, they were talking about finger spelling, using finger spelling things outside of SIPs that they do for spelling sight words. One of them told me they use bananagram tiles, songs, using Play-Doh to make the words. Spell to read the sight word. That's something I've learned, that since we teach it at spelling, if they're gonna pull it back out of their brain, if they don't know what the word is and they're just stuck, I tell them, spell it. Say the letters that you see. And when they do that, they get it. So that helps them when they're testing too. Somebody else told me that they made up worksheets. I had one parent, this is during COVID, who did this with their child to help them with sight words, made a sight word scavenger hunt. Okay, and then she would just put like the sight word somewhere around the house, tape it to like a bookshelf or something, and she'd send him off with a word. He'd have to go find it. And I thought that's great. And I think somebody was saying in our group that they wanted to do something where they wanted to make magnetic cards, put them on the refrigerator. And these are parents who don't speak English. So she was going to have them give them some sort of an app or something that they can translate that word into English so that they know what the pronunciation is. And then the child still has to go find the word, obviously, through the house, like as I guess like a scavenger hunt or something like that. So all those things are excellent ways to get these kids to read their sight words. Because I think once they learn how to read sight words, a sight word on a sheet of paper, if you look at them, it's about 80% of what they're reading. If they can get those sight words, then the rest is going to be easy peasy. It's less that they have to sound out. And that's it. I'm off my soapbox.
Thank you. Did anybody want to add anything to what Amy said before we go on to the next group? Okay, great. I actually want to add something. So I like the way that you guys added those different examples of how to teach that stuff. That's the multimedia that I was talking about before, the different ways of teaching those things. Esther mentioned, and Amy said something about this too, the kids learning the sight words on a flashcard or on the cards that we have, and then going to text and not knowing what they're doing with that information. So yeah, combining those different activities and using them in different sentence structures are a great way to support kids in those areas. Yeah, excellent. All right, last group.
So we were all brand new in our group. So one person just started in October as an assistant, and then another person, this is her first year as a coordinator, and this is my second. And so we were just like saying just all the things that we have learned kind of coming into this program. And all of us are starting to slowly get into more of the comprehension realm by incorporating those worksheets for teacher-led comprehension questions and trying to piece what they know and then take them a little bit farther in vocabulary. Thanksgiving is a really great time because there's a lot of Thanksgiving stories that talk about different foods. And so one of the activities they were talking about this little turkey's first Thanksgiving, and his mom was making all of the different foods, and the kids were asking, "What's squash?" So being able to show a picture and then kind of take them through the process of like, what squash, what's it used for, and to be able to show them, they're like, "Oh, I've seen that before." So kind of helping build their vocabulary while also increasing their comprehension of what is in the story is something that we're all kind of starting to really work on together.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anyone, do you want to chime in to what Symphony said?
I kind of do, and I don't know if this is going to be responded to positively or not. But the next step, which I think is always important, no matter how young the children, are beginning to develop the critical thinking skills, like comparing, contrasting. And you could take squash and compare it to an apple. Yeah, you know what, one's fruit, one's vegetable, one the color, or you can take another vegetable. There are all different ways to begin to get those thinking skills going. So it's kind of the next step, but I like to start it very young because they can do it. They really can. So that's my end of my soapbox.
No, not a problem. Thank you so much for that. I actually will, because I was going to go down the list and hit some of the resources that are available for each of these. And since you kind of landed on a little bit of vocabulary, I mentioned before that some of this stuff can be touched on through your curriculum. And so for vocabulary, if you still have the Kids Lit curriculum or actually, yeah, specifically the Kids Lit one, there's a section called Cool Words. And so in there, you get that list of specific or content specific words for your story that you can build knowledge or categorize for those specific teachings for those words. And then on top of that, um, for RAS, you can go on there. They have a similar section too, where they teach vocabulary on their lesson plans. But in addition to that, if you're looking at categorizing and content specific words, you can teach through a unit because they have units where you can touch like 5 different books that are in the same unit of learning or same area of learning. And so they're being introduced to vocabulary that is in one unit, but it's different books and it's different ways of looking at that information. So yeah, look into that stuff. It's all available to you. Um, Similar for comprehension, those resources too in RAS Kids and in Kids Lit. Kids Lit will be phasing out at some point. They don't make it anymore, but you can still use those materials. ReadWorks as well. Building those understandings and finding out exactly what the kids need to know in those areas, which you can do through iReady. And then also working with them directly. You can find out those different areas that they need specifically and you can tailor those lessons to exactly what they need to know. You can find that inside your iReady next step section and it'll give you a tools of instruction, a small lesson plan that'll allow you to teach that. You can also go to that FCRR website and find a lot of specific teachings of those different areas, the skill levels that they need to build for comprehension. I know that's one that kids really struggle with, even though our kids that test out of SIPs, comprehension is usually the reason why they're with us anyway. So getting in there and finding those passages where they're working on word meaning, figurative language, punctuation, sentence structure. There's a ton of information for that. One on those different websites and resources that I gave you, but also on Teacher Pay Teacher. There's a lot of free stuff on there, different passages with not only the passages and things that they need to do for it, but the answer key as well. So definitely dive in there. That's a lot of different stuff that I used to go and touch on when I was in the classroom. Fluency is one that we tend to forget about a little bit, only because we're in the script of SIPs often. Although we do have the kids reread those stories, and a lot of us probably aren't tracking the actual fluency. So there are things within the curriculum for tracking fluency with the stories that the kids read. There's a reading log. There's a fluency check in there as well. But one thing I saw, I did a site visit at Vineland yesterday. One thing I saw in there was that they're doing running records. They're doing other assessments that they're using to track fluency with the students. So you can do those things as well. And in RAS Kids, you can actually assign a fluency or a running record check with some of the books that you're having the kids read. And they'll do it right from their iPad or from a computer if you're using laptops. Um, but there are options for that for testing running record and fluency for the students. And again, those passages also can be found on teacher resource pages like Teacher Pay Teacher.
I have a question, Ryan.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that appropriate for all grade levels
Is it
as far as
appropriate?
like tracking fluency? Because I just like I know that my kids are like they're, it's not where it needs to be. But also like they're so low and they have all of these skills that they still need to catch up on that like I I don't want to say intentionally, but it's like we have so much other things to focus on that I really don't focus on fluency, outside of like SIPs truly. Because I know like they're not there yet and we have all of the other things that we really, really need to focus on, which will hopefully later in turn, increase fluency, but it's not necessarily priority. Is that a good way to think? Well, not a good way, but like, is that okay? Or should I still be like, no, we need to focus on fluency?
No, I get what you mean. So, like, first of all, you'll know your student and what they need the most. I will say don't forget about it because, like I was mentioning before, we need all of these strands. It's not just the one strand. It's not drilling phonics the whole time. Like there are other components to it, and they will need all of them. But depending on their grade level and how low they are, they might need those foundation skills more and immediately. And if they don't have them, the other things won't fall in place anyway. So if you stick to just the fluency that they're doing with SIPs because they need the other things more, that's absolutely fine. But as you start to get to those older grades to where they're going to have to be reading different texts more often, one, that fluency check is going to be introducing them into those texts. They're reading them more frequently and they're being able to process that. That's the way of getting that practice that they're gonna be doing. And if you're listening to them, then you're able to give the feedback that they need or find out if they need help on anything anyway. So don't skip it, but definitely prioritize what the student needs immediately. Any other questions about fluency before I move on? No, and this will be my last thing because I know we've got to get off this meeting. And then the phonics and phonemic awareness, again, I showed you guys those different resources. That is already heavily supported through the SIPS curriculum. But like the curriculum said, it's not just about drilling phonics and drilling sounds and words and stuff like that. You also need to put them into different multimedia on this particular subject, on this particular skill. So is it a song that they're listening to? Is it a mnemonic saying that they're listening to? Is it a picture book that they're walking through? Are you playing a read the room or write the room game? All these games that you guys mentioned, these are great examples. What you're doing is already supporting the kids. So there are plenty of resources out here. If there's anything you're looking for, everybody has access to everybody's information. So if there's somebody you heard to speak today that you're really interested in touching base with, send them an email. You don't need my permission to do that. Shoot them an email, a text, let them know who you are, introduce yourself, and please reach out to your friends. Everybody is connected. This is a collaborative space, like I've mentioned a lot of times before, and we are all here to support each other. I hope that this training was edifying in some way. Like I said, it was very condensed because we didn't need to be here for 5 hours. But again, you do have access to other things that you can use. Again, if you have people come in new, this recording will be available to you. I'll put it on to the coordinator drive. But give them those resources. Allow them to go and log into those pages. Let them know about it because if they don't know about it, they can't use it, right? So share out the information. Does anybody have any more questions pertaining to the training or anything else they want to say before I let you guys go? Somebody said something in the chat. Oh, thank you so much, Esther. Um, Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming and rocking with me. Again, I hope this training was useful to you. If you need anything else or you need more in depth on this, I'm gonna send out those resources also to the people who did not get them. Please let us know. We're here to help. And if you need any more or have any more training suggestions, please let us know. And I don't mind giving this training again to somebody if somebody needs to have like a person walking through it. Or need somebody to go in depth about any of these subjects. But yes, thank you for coming and spending your Friday with me. If I don't see you before or hear from you before break, have a good one and be safe. Bye, guys.